Hey guys, welcome to the first ever Teddy's Teaching Tuesday. And today we're going to go over how to use bands within your main movements. So let's get to it. So Westside Barbell did a really good job of popularizing bands and use them within your main movements. But realistically, what's that mean for an athlete or the average gym goer into making progress within their own lifts? So here I'm getting ready to tell you with 3 main reasons before I show you how to use the bands. So the first one is overloading the top of a movement. So a lot of people end up missing the bench press or squat towards the end range of motion when they got to finish out the rep. So with bands, it allows you to really get used to having more weight at the top, but as you bring the weight down, there's not as much tension at the bottom. So that way you can press up and get more experience at that top range of motion. And again, with that added resistance at the top, it's something heavier than you're used to doing by yourself. So it tricks your central nervous system into firing harder and allowing you to do more weight over time. Now the second reason is it forces you to control the weight even more. So whenever you're lowering a straight weight barbell, meaning just the barbell and plates, you're fighting just against gravity. So gravity falls at 9.8 meters per second. So if I drop this plate, it's falling at the rate of gravity, and if I were to lower that weight, it would just be gravity. But when I'm using the band, it's dependent on the elasticity of the band. So as you can see, this is just a small mini band. I'm going to pull it up here. It comes down a lot faster than the rate of gravity. So what that forces me to do is to stay much tighter within my muscles in order to control the weight up and down. Which brings me to my third reason is tendons and other connective tissues really are stimulated and grow throughout constant tension. So because you have to keep your muscles a lot tighter throughout the entire range of motion, it forces you to stay tight and really build up that connective tissue. So now that we have 3 reasons why we should use bands within our training, let's go over how to use them. And right now we're going to go over the bench press first. All right, so when we're setting up bands on the bench press, there's a few different ways to set it up, but the idea is whenever you do a lift, the band needs to go straight up and down through the range of motion you are going through, okay? So there's a lot of different bench setups where you will have band pegs, you will not have band pegs, or there's something else you can use in place of those band pegs. And I'm going to try to show you a few different options. So here at Colossus Barbell, we have the Rogue bench press set up here. And again, they purposely made it so you had to use their shorty bands that they sell online. But realistically, most of you are only going to have the normal 41, 42 inch length band. And I'm going to show you how to set up the main lifts with those bands. So again, the idea is you want the band to go straight up and down and have tension throughout the entire range of motion in the movement. So if I'm going to set it up double band, you can see I'm just putting the band through the bottom, and we put an extra pin in here to keep the tension within the band the entire time. So we put the band through here and we put both ends of the band onto the barbell. So that way, as you're going through the movement, you're getting all the tension at the top and about half the tension at the bottom. So realistically, it's not that the band ever completely comes off, the tension is just lessened. So let's say you're not as strong or not strong enough to use both bands. So in order to half the tension of that, I'm going to take the other end of the band and put it on the J hook. Now I know this is kind of a mind illusion or whatnot, but it really does take half the tension off. And the best part of it is because that band is still lengthened with the J hook and the other end is on the barbell, it still maintains that tension throughout the entire range of motion. So let's say you don't have this type of setup at your gym. You may be forced to use dumbbells. That's fine. Now, it's not my ideal type of setup, but again, not all of us have an ideal gym. So we're going to take the dumbbells and try to line them up as close as we can to each other and where that range of motion is going to be. Now, once they're set up, I'm going to set them up exactly the same way as I would using this pin. I just slide it underneath the dumbbell and I either put both ends on the barbell or put one on the J hook. Now, another thing you may want to consider when you're setting it up with the dumbbells is use something that is very heavy, because again, these bands, they have a very elastic property to them that may lift the dumbbell off the ground as you're doing the motion. So now that we went over the bench press, now we're going to go over the squat. All right, so now we're going to set up the bands on the back squat. So there's a few different ways to do this, and I'm going to show you how to do it with a model lift and how to do it with just a regular rack. So the big thing you need to consider is it's very similar to the bench press, is the bands need to go straight up and down. Now where it differs from the bench press is, if you think about it, the body is staying still in the bench press. You're just picking your hands up and moving the bar where it needs to be. Unfortunately, that's not the case for most of us when we do a back squat. So when you do it out of a rack, you have to pick it up and then walk your whole body backwards. So that's where you need to take careful consideration of where you place the bands ahead of time. So when you do set them up and you're doing them out of a rack and you have to walk it out, the bands will start off at an angle, but when you go to walk it back, you're going to go straight up and down. Now, if you're fortunate enough to have a model lift, you obviously just put the bands straight up and down from where they're going to be. When you pick up the bar, and then whoever's running the model lift removes the hooks, and you go ahead and squat straight away. Now again, a couple ways to do this. So if you're able to do it with a model lift, I would just rack the band directly at the bottom of the rack, so that way you have the maximal amount of tension as possible. And again, you may need a partner to pick up the rack. Fortunately, we have the Agoge 4-post mono, so that way I'm able to just slide the bands right underneath the knee. Now, if you don't have a rack, you can set it up with band pegs. So I have it right here. These are the handles that came with the 4-post mono. They're not actually band pegs, but we're going to use them as such. So as you can see here, I spaced up the band pegs just a little bit, so that way when I walk out the bar, the band is going straight up and down, and then the knot where I tied or looped the band is in between those pegs evenly. So that way when you do squat, the band's not moving around and the tension is even throughout the entire range of movement. Now you can play around with the band pegs and make them closer or further away. So if you're a shorter guy like me, 5'6", you may need to place those band pegs further away from each other. Now if you're a taller guy, you may need only just one band peg, but the idea is you need to have band tension throughout the whole range of motion. So that way, if you're actually squatting and you get to the bottom and they're slacking the band, that's not really ideal, and it's not going to transfer into your lifts going forward. So stay tuned, and we're actually going to go over the deadlift. Alright, so now we're going to show you or talk about how to set up bands on the deadlift. So realistically, you would want a platform with pegs in it. Unfortunately, here in Colossus, we do not have that. But you'll see in these videos, at the last place I was at, we actually did have a platform with band pegs. So that way you're able to just strap it across the bands and then put it onto the barbell. Now, when you put bands on a barbell, make sure you're going on the collar or the sleeve, because that way, if you put it on the inside of the bar where you have the knurling, it'll actually tear the band apart over time, and it can actually cause you to get seriously injured if that band snaps while you're deadlifting. So here at Colossus, we actually have a Agoge infinity rack where we actually just take a deadlift bar, put it in between the rigs, and we just deadlift into the band doing that. Now, again, this is not ideal because it stretches the band out further than we'd like, but at the same time, it creates plenty of tension for us as needed. Now, if you do not have a platform or even rig set up like here, this isn't ideal, but again, you can still get some use out of this. Is draping the band over the barbell and then standing on top of it. Because again, it's going to be a bit loose at the bottom, but the tension will come fairly quickly. And if you separate your feet quite a bit, or even just use a sumo stance, it will stay tight the entire time. So I hope you guys like the first Teddy's Teaching Tuesday, and I'll see you guys around.